Ari Kruglansky is a distinguished professor of psychology at the University of Maryland and is the co-author of 3 Pillars of Radicalization. Hi, Ari.
Hello, good to be with you.
Thank you. I don't want to give away the 3 pillars, but they are in the title, which are, the first one is needs.
The need, the second one is the narrative, and the third one is the network.
Let's start with needs.
The needs. The need that underlies much of social activism and violent extremism in particular is the quest for significance. It's the human quest for dignity and respect. It's a universal need, can be accomplished in many different ways. All people have it. The way it is accomplished is determined by the 2 remaining ends of the 3-end triumvirate, the narrative and the network. The narrative basically tells you how to satisfy the need. What do you need to do? Do you need to embark on a constructive career? Do you need to fight for your race, for your country, against enemies that are taking over, that are promoting injustice to your group? And the third N is the network. The importance of the network, it's the social movement. And its importance is that it validates the narrative. We are social beings. We need validation by people who we respect and whose good opinion we seek. So the importance of the network, its leaders, people who we admire and who want to be admired in return is very important. So the 3 ends, once they come together, once the need is aroused by humiliation or opportunity for glory, and the narrative tells you how to do it by fighting the deep state, fighting the Jews, fighting the Muslims, fighting the refugees. And there's a network that supports it, including high-powered people like leaders of the country, like the president of our country. Then you have a social movement that becomes very dangerous. And you've seen the culmination of that kind of process in the assault on the Capitol on January 6th.
Was President Trump the author of the narrative, or did he simply pick up on it and understand what he was feeding?
He was not the author of the narrative. The narrative existed for many years before. The white supremacists, the neo-Nazi movement, the conspiracy theorists have been thriving throughout the decade. There's been a huge uptick in far-right plots by 320% on recent count. But he accelerated that process by legitimizing it. Who, if not the highest person in the realm, the most powerful leader in the world, is credible as an endorser of a narrative. And so he joined the narrative, he encouraged its supporters, and the rest is history. The rest, we've seen the acceleration of the movement over the last 4 years. And in the last phase, following the elections, it entered a new, highly accelerated phase that finally led to the events of January 6th.
You draw some parallels with history, like Adolf Hitler, who, went back in 1918, that Germany was, in fact, he said, was winning World War I. And then he started betraying, only to be betrayed by Jews and socialists and etc.
Yes. Dana, it's always dangerous to draw historical analogies. However,
dangerous not to.
Pardon?
It's dangerous not to.
And there is a good justification to do it, because even though the historical circumstances are always very different, the fundamental human nature does not change. Since the Homo sapiens appeared on the scenes, we have been pretty much endowed with the same nature. And that nature is vulnerable, susceptible to a process that culminates in extremism. And what particularly troubles me is that a fringe group like the Nazis in Germany that started as a small group of thugs, embracing the idea that there was a knifing in the back of the German nation by the Jews and socialists. Then over time, gradually crept into the mainstream through the putsch in Bavaria, in Munich, on November 8th, 1923. Slowly, it gained momentum. And
which was a failure.
In Bavaria, yes. Finally, it gained momentum to the extent that it overpowered the entire German nation. And we have seen the outcome of that, the Second World War, the Holocaust, and the rest of it. So, what troubles me about the current events in the United States is that this fringe movement now commanded a large chunk of the American population. 74 people voted for Trump. Many believed that in the conspiracy theories that the elections were stolen. Clearly, that narrative, that conspiracy theory, crept into the Republican Party. A large chunk of the Republican Party still insists that there were problems with the election and it was illegitimate. So, whereas not everybody in that crowd was violent and some people were just protesting, the fact that over 60 million people supported this Stop the Steal narrative creates a huge recruitment pool. They shared with the most violent demonstrators the idea that there was an injustice done to the American people, that there was a plot against America. So this creates a recruitment pool. These events are glorified and are seen as a great achievement. So, the process of creeping into the mainstream is probably intensified by these events.
How do you counter that? Do you just shut their network down and drive them underground, or how do you reach out to these people? Do you need to reach out to them?
You need to reach out. You need to first of all, cool down the rhetoric, reduce the vindictiveness. On the one hand, you need to hold people accountable. On the other hand, it should not occupy the center stage. And you should put in place a process to de-radicalize the American population. It has to start in schools, communities, churches, the police. A large initiative needs to be taken place in which the whole society is involved. It's going to be a very difficult process to put that genie back into the bottle, because
Larry, there really isn't a call for that. There is a call for justice. There is a call for making people pay and putting them in jail and arresting them. There isn't a call for that dialogue.
Yes, well, at least it's a minority call. What is encouraging is that President-elect Biden seems to be of that mindset of reducing the heat of the rhetoric, reducing the vindictiveness, and becoming pragmatic about the problems that beset the country. Pragmatism as opposed to ideology, dealing with the vaccination, with the coronavirus, dealing with the economy. And hopefully, he will need in that enterprise cooperation of the Republican Party, who alone can maybe put a stop or at least slow down the process. We haven't seen much evidence for that. There is some, but perhaps, with Biden is, by the way, is a very good choice this time and age, because he's a pragmatist. He has plenty of experience. He knows everybody, and he knows the ropes with his experience in the Congress and in the White House. And he's a very likable person, unlike Hillary Clinton, that somehow was perceived in negative way by many people. It's very difficult to dislike Joe Biden. So I think all of these elements bode well for the possibility of cooling it down and back to pragmatics and cooling down the ideological heat that has been overtaking America.
Are you a fan of the fact that some of these social networks were pulled down and other people, including the president, were banned and lost their accounts or had them suspended?
Well, it's a moral dilemma. Do you revoke people's freedom of speech? Is the speech that is being propagated in the category of hate speech? This is always a very thin line. So I think that banning Trump from speaking is a good thing at the end of the day.
Especially at this moment.
Especially at this moment. But one has to be very careful with not being too much of a censor of expressing opinions in the United States.
Harry Kruglanski, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dana. It's been a pleasure.